The journey down the Rio Negro is easygoing in the high water season, with strong currents and wide channels. There are no roads to Barcelos. Public ferries are the only way to transport merchandise or for locals to travel to Manaus. Hammocks are hung on the upper decks for passengers to sleep at night and idle away the time during the day. At the end of the 250-mile, 24-hour journey, Manaus appears on the left bank. A big city with 2.5 million people, the major industrial and transport hub in Amazonia. At the end of the 19th century, the city entered a boom era. Rubber had become an important commodity internationally. Rubber trees are indigenous to this region, and Manaus was the primary port. The city was transformed. Rubber barons created a classic European-style capital in the middle of the jungle. The centerpiece was the Grand Opera House. But the inevitable bust arrived within 30 years. Seeds from rubber trees had been smuggled out of Brazil, then planted and cultivated more cheaply in Asia. Manaus slipped into decay. Today it remains an important economic hub, but it struggles to find its way. A 6-year economic recession has complicated progress towards much-needed improvements in infrastructure and social services. The Barcelos ferry arrives at a small port just outside the city center. Its cargo of aquarium fish will stay in motion. The exporters are arriving to collect their orders. The trucks are the next mode of transportation. For this batch, the destination is Tabatinga Aquarium. They're located about 80 kilometers outside the city, where the forest thickens and the water is clean from contaminants. It's one of the largest and longest operating exporters in Manaus.
Eu já trabalho com peixes ornamentais uma faixa de 50, 60 anos. Eu comecei a trabalhar em Tabatinga com meu pai, eu tinha 10 anos, 12 anos naquela época. Não, essa água aqui é diferente do Rio Negro. A do Rio Negro a temperatura é alta, mas quando ele chega aqui, nós só fazemos acrescentar um pouco da nossa. No segundo dia, no terceiro dia já vai normal. Que aí ele se aclimata bem. Se tu mudar total, ele vai sentir o choque térmico. Aí ele vai sentir, vai adoecer, morre, né? E quando o peixe aqui, a gente faz tratamento em cima, né? 2, 3 dias com remédio, com tetracicline, um pouquinho de sal. Depois é que a gente põe para as redes. Aí ele passa aqui, tem peixe que passa 1 mês, 12 meses se alimentando, para depois a gente classificar por tamanho para exportar. Então não tem como você perder, porque já sai todo sadiozinho, todo tratado. Né? Eu tenho cliente dos Estados Unidos, tenho cliente da Europa, tenho cliente da Ásia, né? Tenho cliente do Japão. Né?
Manaus has a few dozen exporters, of varying sizes and capabilities. One small business is located on the ground floor of an office building, not far from the city center.
Nossa empresa é pequena, né? Ao contrário de outras empresas locais daqui que são bem grandes. A gente tenta oferecer um produto um pouco diferente, com uma diversidade de peixe diferente do que é oferecido normalmente no mercado.
É que a gente tem um componente acadêmico, científico. Então a gente trabalha também com pesquisas, seja monitorando as áreas que a gente pesca ou que os pescadores também capturam os peixes para vender para a gente. Quando a gente oferece um peixe difícil ao mercado, a gente não precisa ter grandes quantidades desse peixe. A gente consegue ter uma quantidade pequena e oferecer ao mercado numa logística razoavelmente simples, mas que tem um retorno bastante satisfatório. No caso dos cardinais, por exemplo, precisaríamos enviar milhões de cardinais para fora para ter um rendimento satisfatório. E esse peixe possa passar por cerca de 1 mês aqui dentro, até que ele se alimente, se recupere bem, e aí a gente possa finalmente enviá-lo para o importador.
Now the fish will embark on the next leg of their journey. From the international airport in Manaus, they'll be flown 4 hours south to São Paulo, while they'll be loaded onto connecting flights to destinations around the world. Seagrest Farms in Central Florida is the United States' largest importer of wild-caught fish from the Rio Negro. Although they breed many fish species for the aquarium market, an important part of their business model is to import wild-caught and captive-bred fish from around the world to distribute to retailers throughout the USA.
This shipment just came up on our Miami truck, came up from Manaus in Brazil. These fish are from the Rio Negro and its tributaries. This is Paracharodon axelrodi. These are our cardinal tetras. We're going to do a quality test here. We're going to look them over, make sure that the fish look full, healthy. We don't have too many DOAs in the bag. These fish look pretty good. They're swimming straight, swimming strong. They look responsive. They're ready to go out and get acclimated. We start by first identifying what fish we need out here in the building and in what numbers. We check seasonality and flight availability. We make sure that all of that's there, because if they don't have the fish and the flights aren't there in the first place, we can't actually bring the fish in. From there, we tend to reach out to the vendors and talk to them about what looks good, whether or not we have enough time to book the shipment and clear the shipment.
I had always been of the thought process that tank-raised fish are inherently better than wild-caught fish, and had fully supported the effort to buy as many tank-raised fish as possible. I had the stark realization that when we change from wild-caught fish to farm-raised fish, we are directly affecting the livelihoods of the people that collect ornamental fish. We source wild-collected fish not only from the Amazon, from Manaus, fish collected from Peru, from Ecuador, from Africa, from Congo, from Nigeria, wild collected fish from the Indo-Pacific Triangle. I am very much in support of maintaining those supply lanes.
Well, we decided to get as involved with conservation as we possibly could. And by reinvesting our money into the pockets of the fishermen there, it's keeping them out of getting into work like deforestation, mining. We've produced some cardinal tetras here. Cardinal tetras kind of being one of the bread and butter items that come out of the Rio Negro fishery for some time. But the wild caught source is just an incredible fish, and one that was pretty easy for us to kind of tap back into and tie into, because they've already been collecting those in pretty sustainable but good numbers for some time.
In Europe, one of the largest importers of wild-caught Rio Negro fish is Runemans Aquarium.
Runemans has been active in this business for 65 years. We stock around 1 million fish at any given time in our tanks, and we sell them to almost 1,000 retailers in more than 25 countries. Our reputation for good quality and consistency is based on a few ideas. First of all, we actively exchange information with our suppliers and also with our customers, and that brings you both further. Also, we hire staff and train them ourselves, and preferably staff that are passionate about fish. We have state-of-the-art facilities, a veterinarian, well-managed protocols, and that does the trick. Fish from the Rio Negro contributes very well to our ideas. Together with our partner Prestige, we control a large part of the process from catching the fish and getting the fish to us. And therefore you get very healthy and fit fish.
Not all importers are interested in buying popular species by the millions. Many prefer to trade in less common, more expensive Amazon species.
We've always been committed to supplying the U.S. market with wild-caught fish. Not only do we believe that it's beneficial socially and economically to the region, we also simply believe that the fish look better when they come from their natural habitat. The colors and pattern and width of their stripes and the height of their dorsal fin, they look as they should from their natural habitat. We're often asked why we don't breed our fish and raise them to sell. The biggest reason for that is because it takes time. It costs money and it limits our availability. If we bring them in wild, direct from Brazil, they're ready to sell in a few weeks to a month. We can ship them out and get new ones in. We would rather bring in a shipment, quarantine it for a certain amount of time, and move it on to our customers. Empty out our tanks, bring new fish in. This way we can keep our stock list fresh. Our customers always have something new. Not only that, but it's more turnover for us.
Conservationists and those who work in the aquarium trade claim that the industry offers several important benefits to the Amazon region. It offers livelihoods to struggling communities in a form that is sustainable to the fish populations and helps to protect the forest and rivers. The fish that are traded helps connect hobbyists to the natural world and inspires them to protect aquatic habitats. Perfect. But sounds too good to be true? Well, you may be partially right. The fact is, the aquarium trade on the Rio Negro has virtually collapsed over the last 15 years. Many piaberos have left the business, and exports are a fraction of what they once were.
Ela foi pujante na década de 80, de 90, até 2004, 2005. A gente consegue perceber essa queda acentuada mesmo a partir de 2008, quando a gente sai de 22 milhões de peixes ornamentais para, no ano seguinte, 2009, vender apenas 17 milhões de peixes ornamentais. E hoje, na atualidade, isso está representando algo em torno de 5 milhões de peixes ornamentais.
Bem devagar mesmo, quase parando. Era um produto que tanto nos ajudava, era a venda da piaba, hoje ninguém tem. Dificilmente se vende 1 milheiro, 2 milheiros por semana.
Porque antes tinha como a gente vender os cardinal, tinha mais patrão, agora não. Eles não querem quantidade de peixe, é uma quantia de peixe. Faz de conta que eles querem 300 caixas, pegam umas 2 semanas, aí passa um mês sem querer peixe, aí vão embora de novo, assim que fica. Como agora, eles não querem cardinal.
Às vezes não compensa, porque o cara quer 20 milheiros de cardinal. Aí você faz seu orçamento, quanto você vai gastar para pegar 20 milheiros de cardinal? Aí 20 milheiros de cardinal vai dar R$300, mas você precisa gastar R$2.000 para pegar o cardinal. Então é preferível parar do que ir atrás desse peixe ornamental. Eles estão precisando daquela quantia de cardinal só. Então muitos estão parando por causa disso aí. O pescador de cardinal, olha aí, virou pescador de peixe comestível. Não dava mais, não tinha mais como ganhar nada.
Eu trabalhei 21 anos em piaba. Mais ou menos 2006, ainda estava bom ainda. Ainda vendia bem piaba, né? Vendia bem. Mas depois passou por 2008, essa base aí ninguém não vendia mais nada. Nem eu ganhava dinheiro, nem meu pessoal, ninguém. Não pagava conta, tudo devendo aqui na taberna, né? Porque não tinha como vender o peixe, a produção era piaba, ninguém não podia vender, não tinha como vender. Aí eu achava que melhor sair do ramo. Eu saí do ramo, até hoje. Não tem para quem vender piaba. Aí já comecei a vender peixe comestível. E vou levando a vida assim.
A pesca desse peixe já foi muito importante no passado para a economia dessa região, do Médio Rio Negro, Barcelos, Santa Isabel, até uns 20 anos atrás. De lá para cá, a pesca tem declinado com bastante importância e hoje nós temos cerca de 10% do que era produzido há 20 anos atrás. A economia da cidade há 20 anos atrás era principalmente peixe ornamental.
Algumas comunidades que eram comunidades tradicionais da pesca ornamental começam a se acabar. Exemplo, onde tínhamos comunidade com 20 famílias, 15 famílias, hoje ela se resumiu a 2 famílias.
Muita gente procuraram um emprego em Barcelos para sobreviver, mais fácil lá em Barcelos, e por isso que foram embora.
Que essas pessoas que vão para a cidade, na sua grande maioria, não tem estrutura para morar na cidade. E aí começam a morar na periferia da cidade. Outras pessoas começam a entrar no ramo da ilegalidade, que buscam por outros meios para sua sobrevivência. Tirar ovos de bicho de casco, capturar bicho de casco, matar animais silvestres para comercializar na cidade de Barcelos ou em outras cidades próximas.
E há 10 anos a gente ainda vendia um pouco mais de cardinal. Hoje, nada. Nada, 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 o que eu sou sem Jesus e sem vender cardinal também, né, Magó?
This fishery is now facing the likelihood of collapse, and the collapse doesn't appear to be coming from classic causes of fishery collapse. The resource is abundant, the fish populations are thriving, the environment is still pristine.
So what has caused the Rio Negro fishery to decline so dramatically? For over 50 years, it was a reliable, consistent way for locals to make a living. There are several factors which play a part. We will examine them one by one.
The aquarium fish industry is extremely seasonal. It's typical of other extractive industries where the people are producing for 2 or 3 months at a time, and then they have to move over to some other industry so that they can sustain themselves throughout the year. Our economic system simply isn't set up that way. So people want products which are going to be on the supermarket shelves or in the aquarium shops all year round.
Manaus has a little bit of a poor reputation in terms of just general business structure, the consistency of high quality fish being available to the market. These are some of the reasons why some of the big companies in the US and Asia have been motivated to try to produce cardinal tetras, to try to farm cardinal tetras.
In the United States, in the land of immediate gratification, if we don't have an animal at least 50 weeks out of the year, it really condenses the amount of people that we can sell those animals to. So larger customers really don't care why we don't have a fish. They want to have fish in their tanks. We were forced to look around the world, to Czech Republic, to Indonesia, in order to find a captive bred alternative. And then we learned how to breed those fish ourselves.
Ever since the cardinal tetra was first produced in captivity and cultured commercially, there hasn't really been a need for this market anymore. A lot of importers felt that it wasn't worth the hassle to get fish from Manaus, and so it just kind of slowly diminished, decreased, was almost forgotten about.
When Seagrass Farms realized that their breeding program was contributing to the drop in exports of cardinal tetras from Brazil, they decided to support the fishery by purchasing more of their fish.
A wild-caught cardinal is generally a younger fish. A tank-raised cardinal that we produce is generally like a 9-month-old fish, where a wild-collected cardinal could be only 3 to 5 months old. And there are markets for both. And that was the thing that was surprising to me, you know, being a businesswoman, figuring out how to market wild-collected cardinals when we produce an awful lot of cardinals that are tank-raised. As it turns out, if you market one, you sell more of both. There really is a price difference. A wild-collected cardinal is perhaps half of the price of a tank-raised cardinal. Some consumers prefer to have tank-raised cardinal, thinking that they are healthier. And then there are consumers who really want to have the follow the beans story, who know they're making a difference in the environment in the Amazon by making that purchase. Right now, wild cardinals are more in demand than tank-raised cardinals.
Cardinals from here are much more beautiful in color than the tank-raised ones or the pond-raised ones, because they have the real red and blue in full color, which is sometimes missing by the tank-raised, which are a little more pale, less red, more white belly. So I see a difference in quality.
The wild ones, whether it's diet, exposure to natural sunlight, they are just a much prettier fish, and the colors are more vibrant. The behavior, the shoaling behavior is more innate with these guys because, you know, they have to deal with predators, and it's a different fish.
Essa atividade também começa a cair a partir do momento que a maior empresa de exportação de peixes ornamentais ela encerra suas atividades no Amazonas, que seria a empresa Turquesa Aquário. Nós estamos falando de uma empresa que exportava praticamente 80%, 90% do peixe ornamental da região do Rio Negro.
Tem demanda, né? Barcelos aqui o pessoal está preparado, tem muito peixe. A questão que a gente percebe é em Manaus, não tem mais ninguém com uma estrutura. O que está faltando é isso aí, algum empresário investir em Manaus numa estrutura para estar recebendo esse peixe daqui.
If we turned on the tap in the U.S. Right now and there was a huge demand, bottleneck is Manaus because there's not infrastructure at the exporter level there.
In order to meet the demands of the importing countries, there needs to be a facility of sufficient size that can stockpile large quantities of fish that they have access to during the fishing season. And they need to maintain these large quantities year-round.
There is one exporter in Manaus who has consistently supplied fish year-round to select international clients. Prestige Aquarium. They have 2 facilities, a location outside of Manaus where they have the space and natural resources to store and stabilize large quantities of wild-caught species, and also a facility in the city near the airport where the fish are prepared to be shipped to clients around the world.
A Prestige é uma empresa que tem 42 anos no mercado. Ela começou como uma empresa familiar. Eu sou a 3ª geração, né? E hoje nós conseguimos atender o ano inteiro todas as demandas de tetra, né, acaradisco, plecos, ciclídeos. Prática para cuidado que nós temos aqui na Prestige é deixar o peixe mais tempo em estoque, né? Quanto mais tempo ele se adapta no ambiente do aquarista, né, melhor fica, né? A gente fica no mínimo aí 6 meses com peixe no estoque, né, para poder efetuar a venda.
Holding the fish for longer periods allows them to stabilize from the stress of transport and receive treatment for any sicknesses or parasites. A longer holding period allows them to fatten and gives juveniles time to grow. Normally, larger fish can better withstand the stress of shipment, and they can also be sold at a higher price.
Bom, hoje na fazenda nós deixamos os peixes a engorda devida, né, para atender até, no caso do cardinal, até o tamanho jumbo. E é por isso que nós temos capacidade, estoque e qualidade para atender todos os nossos clientes, a nossa demanda o ano inteiro.
Unless the vendors have done a really good job building up an excess stock of fish, we don't really have an ability to order enough for them to really make our freight worthwhile. So if the vendor doesn't have the foresight to bring and hold those fish, we don't really get to do business with them during their rainy season. In addition, flight availability is probably the next biggest challenge. Having a direct flight to Miami when our trucks are down there ready to pick up fish can be a very difficult logistic challenge for us.
Muitas delas desistem de comprar o peixe nosso, não pelos peixes ou pelo preço dos peixes, mas principalmente pelo preço do frete. Então o frete aqui é um dos principais problemas, porque ele é muito alto.
Muitos dos nossos peixes não tem como sair direto de Manaus para os nossos destinos, eles têm que ir até São Paulo, e em São Paulo ser enviado para a Ásia, para a Europa. Ou seja, às vezes demora quase 24 horas para o peixe sair do Brasil e depois ainda viajar quase 48 horas para chegar nos destinos mais longes.
Over the years, as the amount of freight coming out of Manaus to the U.S. has declined, there are less and less planes and less cargo space. When there's a lot of freight coming out of an area, there's a good there are a number of airlines that compete for that cargo business because the cargo business is profitable. Right now, there's not a lot of competition for cargo space, which means that Manaus fish are more expensive from a freight standpoint than fish maybe coming out of Colombia or Peru, where there's more volume coming right now. So that's one of those chicken and egg things is like, well, we need to get the freight rate down to get the volume up. Well, we need to get the volume up to get the freight rate down.
A Colômbia também vende muito barato. Ela vende pela metade do preço, 50% mais barato que nós. E o frete aéreo colombiano é muito baixo. Não tem como as companhias brasileiras concorrer com eles. Então sai o exportador da Europa, de Hong Kong, daí eles procuram levar da Colômbia que o frete é mais barato, né?
Colombia was getting really good at fish exporting, and they were offering a lot of the same species you could get from Manaus, cheaper, easier, better flights. And so this market really, so many factors hit it at once, it just went into free fall. Brazil has a somewhat unusual regulatory system in that there's a list of fish that are allowed to be exported. Instead of banning certain species, they just have a set list that I think it's around 720 species. But it changes, that are allowed to be exported.
O IBAMA tem uma lista positiva de exportação de peixes, são aquelas espécies que são permitidas exportar. Nenhuma das outras milhares de espécies podem ser exportadas, apesar de que provavelmente muitas delas têm populações gigantescas e que poderiam ser exportadas. Muitas têm interesse de aquarista.
A indústria caiu muito, né, a exportação de peixe caiu muito, já também por causa da burocracia do Brasil, que nós temos no Brasil, e a proibição que fica de ninguém poder exportar, e os países vizinhos, a Venezuela, Colômbia, Peru, Bolívia, tudo embarca tudo, né? Então é uma concorrência desleal, nós não podemos.
Eu acho que a existência de uma lista com um número fechado de espécies tem diversos problemas. Um dos problemas é que a lista foi criada com base na lista de espécies que já eram exportadas. Então, fechar nesse número é concentrar o impacto nas mesmas. Então, eu acho que do ponto de vista de conservação não ajuda. O mercado de peixes ornamentais demanda novidade.
And the market is looking for this kind of fish. And maybe they're not so much aware about it, but there is more interest in wild fish than before. But on the condition that it brings social, economic benefit for the local indigenous people. And there's such an abundance available of natural beauties which are not even discovered yet, because we're only fishing in a few percentage. Maybe 2-3% of the total Amazon forest has been fished now, so still has not been explored. It would be a shame not to know how many beauties are here.
Tem um outro problema, por exemplo, com os peixes do Xingu. Há várias espécies ameaçadas pela construção de hidrelétricas, inclusive o zebra pleco e pancistro zebra. Ele é capturado clandestinamente em Altamira, na região do Rio Xingu. Ele vai por Santarém, Manaus, em Manaus até Tabatinga, na fronteira com a Colômbia, em malas, em suitcases, pequenos sacos plásticos, passando a fronteira para Letícia, que é uma rua, e a partir da Colômbia o peixe sai. É uma espécie que só ocorre no Xingu, não tem como coletar na Colômbia.
Já o pessoal da Colômbia, do Peru, eles embarcam tudo, peixe nosso, daqui da região do Solimões, do Japurá, Tefé, do Rio Negro, eles colhem aqui, levam e vendem.
O valor do peixe ornamental tem uma diferença muito grande do que os piabeiros que coletam aqui no Rio Negro e do valor final numa loja de peixe de aquário na América do Norte ou na Europa. O cardinal, que é o principal produto do Rio Negro, é vendido pelos piabeiros aqui na beira do rio para os atravessadores que levam para Manaus por R$16 cada 1.000 peixes.
R$16. O milheiro, né? Era o milheiro. Quando eu comecei a pescar cardinal, a gente pegava um milheiro de cardinal, dava para comprar uma lata de diesel. E hoje tem que, olha, né, para R$15, né? Um milheiro de cardinal, uma lata de diesel tá R$60. Tem que pegar 3 milheiros e ainda não dá.
Eu vendi aqui, eu quero aqui no Porto, né? Eu vendi de R$12 o peixe. Aí, como muitos dizem assim, é melhor vender aqui no Porto que tu recebe logo e de que tu levar e gastar ainda, porque daqui tu levando para Barcelos, tu não vai gastar, tu vai gastar tua gasolina, que a gasolina não tá baratinho agora, né?
Eu sei quem ganha menos, que é o piabeiro. Quem ganha mais, eu não sei exatamente, mas, por exemplo, cada caixa de peixe que é exportada é pago. Tem o isopor, que tem um custo, o plástico, o oxigênio, o trabalho envolvido. Tem uma taxa que até pouco tempo era de R$80 por caixa, onde você exporta mais o peso da água do que do peixe, né? Então a taxa de impostos, mais o frete aéreo, mais o lucro do exportador, mais o lucro de quem compra o peixe no exterior e revende, são muito maiores do que do piabeiro, obviamente.
Ele ganha a sua renda compatível com aquela atividade que ele está exercendo, que ele possa fazer a questão social da família dele, sustentar a sua família de uma forma digna e não de uma forma com que ele tenha que mendigar para que compre um peixe dele por um valor muito abaixo.
Some of the reasons why this fishery is losing competition in the market is because of the quality of the fish, the way that they're handled and conditioned in regard to what the market demands.
Toda a cadeia produtiva do peixe ornamental no Rio Negro tem problemas nos diversos elos da cadeia produtiva. Os pescadores, os piabeiros, não têm, de maneira geral, boas práticas de coleta e manutenção dos peixes. Eles coletam e manuseiam os peixes, muitas vezes com equipamentos inadequados que machucam e estressam os peixes e que alimentam mal os peixes que eles mantêm estocados, e de forma que os peixes se tornam mais fracos e pouco atraentes para os compradores em Manaus. Depois o exportador, que também não tem estrutura adequada, e todos esses passos somados acabam produzindo um peixe de baixa qualidade na exportação.
A maioria das empresas daqui não tem os cuidados na parte do manejo. Normalmente elas recebem o peixe e querem enviar o peixe muito rapidamente para fora, porque tratar do peixe é dinheiro, é tempo, é despesa. E às vezes a gente perde, porque tem muita mortalidade. Muitas vezes o peixe chega muito ruim aqui e depois de uma semana ele morre. Então as empresas normalmente elas querem receber o peixe do pescador e mandar o mais rápido possível, para que o importador resolva o problema dos peixes.
That is something as an industry that doesn't make us happy. We want very healthy fish to put into the market. We don't want people buying fish that then go and die on them in a short period of time. That puts people off the hobby, and it primarily is not good for the animals themselves.
We don't simply shift boxes. We take care of the fish, and if we think they're not fit enough, we simply don't ship them. It's not in our interest to sell fish that die with the consumer. We want the aquarium hobbyists to be very happy with the fish that they get from us.
Where I see problems are from the time that they are collected and starting to be held and then moved downstream is where I see the majority of the problems, mainly related to just a lack of a good level of husbandry and disease management.
We've seen fish of very high quality, and we've seen fish of lesser quality, and it seems to be the duration in the supply chain. So fish that have newly entered that chain seem to be doing well, and it's a matter of then how those fish are held, how they're cared for before they travel further downstream.
There are a number of researchers, exporters, and piaberos who are working to find solutions to these problems. In the Barcelos region, Project Piaba, a multinational research group, are working on a number of fronts to improve the fishery there.
This fishery is now competing with some pretty sophisticated fish, ornamental fish farmers around the world, and that are using the latest practices in transport, best practices in terms of handling. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity to improve those things here, and that's what Project Piaba is sort of all about.
O Projeto Piaba trabalha há mais de 30 anos no Rio Negro, desde a catalogação dos peixes, descoberta de novas espécies, doenças, qualidade do peixe, da água, como tratar essa quarentena, organização do mercado, marketing, divulgação, pesquisa com veterinários para soluções de melhores alimentos, melhores antibióticos.
We are now in the process of developing best handling practices with some very simple and very minor modifications. The fish can be subjected to far less trauma and stress.
What are the problems that could impact fish health? So we identified all of those. And then in the last few years, what we've been doing is taking that information and then developing a training program so that we can train the fishers, the transit station employees, and the exporters to basically mitigate these problems.
Existem diferentes níveis de, vamos dizer assim, profissionalismo dentro dos piabeiros. Existem alguns muito experientes e muito melhores do que outros.
Curso como qualidade do peixe. Então aqui nós também temos uma culpa por causa disso. Porque tem pescador que ele não cuida bem do peixe. Não alimenta bem o peixe vai magro. Porque o peixe ele já com a rede suja, ele já começa a pegar fungo, né?
A ciência pode ajudar. E junto com o conhecimento tradicional, fazer melhorar a nossa atividade, melhorar a sua sustentabilidade.
É bom. É assim, trabalha a questão ambiental, né? Alimentação do peixe, armazenamento do peixe, não pescar muito peixe.
Quando a pessoa vê que um conhecimento técnico pode solucionar um problema que ele há muito tempo tinha e achava que não tinha solução, nesse momento as coisas mudam e a confiança deles aumenta.
It's only a first step. this program, in my view, it needs to continue, and it needs to be repeatable. It needs to be spread out amongst all the Piaberos involved in the fisheries, so we as an industry can be sure that all the fish receive the best care in terms of how they're captured, how they're stored, how they're transported, and then onwards into the European and US markets.
This is part of a broader marketing scheme to be able to sell these fish, saying that best handling practices have been used throughout the whole chain from capture to export.
An important component to improving the handling of fish awaiting transport downriver is a series of proposed floating holding stations.
Já para tratar o peixe aqui, já para vender o peixe mais de boa qualidade. Se funcionasse mesmo esse negócio da pesca, eu acho que as coisas iam melhorar.
A fishermen's cooperative has been established of registered Piaberos who commit to upholding best handling practices.
A cooperativa hoje na região do Rio Negro é a cooperativa Orna Pesca, a cooperativa de pescadoras e pescadores de peixes ornamentais do Rio Negro.
Santa Isabel, quanto Barcelos, quanto São Gabriel da Cachoeira. Todos os piabeiros que pescam peixe ornamental podem ser associados. O piabeiro pesca, entrega a Orna Pesca como toda a cooperativa vende para o exportador, já dentro das condições das boas práticas de manejo. Ou seja, vai ter mais peixe vivo, valendo mais porque ele está com melhor qualidade, e o peixe vai ser pago direto para a Orna Pesca, o exportador Orna Pesca. Não haverá mais um intermediário.
O peixe do Rio Negro tem hoje uma vantagem que é a indicação geográfica. Todo peixe coletado no Médio Rio Negro recebe um selo de indicação geográfica do Rio Negro. É como o champanhe da França, o queijo camembert da região de Camembert e, portanto, é um valor agregado que tem no peixe ornamental de Barcelos.
O trabalho que nós estamos fazendo fora do Brasil, no sentido internacional, que é o melhor mercado comprador do peixe ornamental, é justamente fazer com que eles conheçam a indicação de procedência Rio Negro e comprem o peixe justamente por ter esse selo de qualidade.
Another factor which holds great potential for the Barcelos trade is the new attention being paid to exporting lesser-known species.
The days of when cardinals come out of here in mass quantities by the millions are kind of over. It's just not going to be the same anymore, but there's so many other species that could add value to this chain, and honestly species that are much higher unit value, so easier for the fishers to make money off of, that have a better survivability. So we're really trying to look at the broader fishery, not just the cardinals.
Essa questão do preço, né? Estão pegando menos peixe e tendo uma renda melhor. Isso aí é legal. É legal para o social e para o meio ambiente, né? Econômico, social e ecológico, né?
If you go snorkeling here in the rivers, there's so many small beauties of fish which are not seen as an ornamental fish for the local people because they have not been trained to look at it. Small fish, pygmy fish, needs tiny fish with different colors. And there's so many here. Piaberos know they can collect more and more, separate them out, don't throw them back into the river, send them as samples to the exporters so they can be evaluated as valuable products.
Last year we came out here and fished for cardinals with some of the fisherwomen from Daraqua, and as they were sorting through their catch, they were throwing back into the water species that have a huge dollar value in the US and that we could sell every day of the week, but they just don't know that. And so one of the things we have to do is really bridge that communications gap.
There is optimism within the trade that the Rio Negro fishery can rebound. There is market demand, and with improving handling and care, the fish can meet the quality and consistency standards of the industry.
Problems are relatively simple to solve. It's just educating individuals working in the different sectors and getting them to understand why it's important. It's not something that will cost a lot of money. It just requires some extra effort.
People can ship phenomenal fish out of a trash can and the horrible fish out of a facility that's state-of-the-art. The most important is we see an exporter's commitment to taking care of the animals. I mean, we see that very quickly when we talk to people, and we see the husbandry they employ in a facility. We see the condition of the tanks where the fish are kept. and their commitment to holding the animals long enough to produce a good quality product. It's why we do visit our suppliers, and as we develop relationships, we begin to exchange technology and feedback and work to always improve the process. So it's good to establish those relationships and really gauge that commitment to being successful over the long term.
In recent years, various exporters and state agencies have begun cooperating and holding workshops. They're sharing information on the best techniques for fish care and how to improve their services and income. For over 15 years, exporters have complained that they have no government support. Now it appears that the trade may get a significant boost. Brazil is on the verge of passing new regulations that could be a game changer for the industry in Amazonas. The current positive list of approved species for export will soon be changed to a negative list of species that are prohibited for export.
2020 tem a previsão de sair a lista negativa de espécies, uma lista que vem através da consulta pública, né, feita a exportadores, feito aos pescadores, feito ao governo do estado, feito aos governos municipais, muito em função de uma lista para alavancar a indústria de peixe ornamental no Brasil. Quem assina esse documento é o Ministério da Agricultura, é um ministério que ele vai dar o aval sobre as espécies para exportação. Vai ser muito importante para a vida do piabeiro, porque são espécies que ele já pega naturalmente, mas ele tem que separar e não vender porque não é permitido. Então ele vai poder capturar. Isso é bom para a valorização do trabalho dele. E importante mais ainda a nível de exportação, porque o importador ele requer variedades que nós temos normalmente na Amazônia, só que não é permitido.
These changes in the export regulations may result in the introduction of hundreds of new species to the market. The result could mean more revenue for the fishermen, the exporters, and the government. Potentially, there'll be less pressure on currently approved species which are being caught by the millions, like cardinal tetras and discus. This development has the potential to make the industry even more sustainable, both financially and from the perspective of conservation. But there is one last factor that could not only impede the full recovery of the fishery, but it could potentially completely end it.
The aquarium industry and hobby has some problems it has to face. They're facing a public perception issue. Animal rights organizations are just vehemently opposed to all animals in captivity, especially some that have been taken from the wild. And they're very powerful groups that can result in legislation and can result in cost to have to offset that with advertising, with legal fees. Some of these campaigns result in legislation and policy that make it more difficult in the buying countries to do business.
If you look at any of the websites of Humane Society of the United States, ASPCA, you will see that the messaging is don't buy wild caught, don't keep wild caught, and that includes fish. PETA goes even farther and says don't buy any fish at all. Instead, get a colorful screensaver of fish and put it on your computer.
If they came somewhere like Barcelos and actually saw the fishery and saw the broader benefits that it offers the local communities, the protection it provides to the environment, they might change their mind. Conservation is a really complex issue. There are no simple solutions to it. Bans may work in some instances, but there are instances where they could have much more negative effects. And this is a prime example of one of those instances where an outright ban would have a serious negative effect.
The reality is the sustainable use of resources in the Amazon actually works to protect those habitats. You really create incentive to protect those environments, and that impacts everything from not just the fish, but every other animal in that habitat.
In fact, nobody has a more vested interest than the fishermen to take care of the environment where they get the fish. And they want to keep the fish populations growing in order to maintain their livelihoods.
In 2018, animal rights groups succeeded in pressuring state agencies in Hawaii to partially end the capture of marine fish from their coral reefs, putting the future of the fishery in jeopardy. This sent shockwaves through the aquarium industry.
Hawaii is viewed worldwide as the best managed fishery ever. If we can't successfully win the battle to allow fishermen to continue their livelihood, I am very afraid that we'll have a catastrophic effect on the entire industry. If Hawaii goes, attacks will be made, and already are being made, in areas like Indonesia. And probably marine fisheries would be put out first, and then it would just be a cascade for the fisheries in freshwater areas, such as in Brazil.
No matter how much data we have that shows that we are collecting in a sustainable manner, the methods are sustainable, the fish populations are actually increasing. When you ban a fishery that's well managed, that sets a precedent. That says that you can do it anywhere.
But there are cases where fish have been collected in ways that are harmful to habitats. For example, cyanide has been used to capture some reef fish in Asia.
I am aware that bad practices exist in some wild-caught fisheries. Bad practices such as cyanide fishing. And that's something that my association, my members, will not support in any way. It's not sustainable, it's damaging to the coral reefs where they're using the cyanide, and it's an unethical practice as well. There are bad practices and good practices. We need to look where the good practices are, and we will use those fisheries. Where the bad practices are, we need to close those fisheries down.
If somebody is operating a fishery that is not providing socioeconomic value to the community and/or they're somehow harming the environment, the industry has to stand straight and tall and make sure that player either gets put out of business or reforms to practice good techniques.
Yeah, we like to feel really good about the fisheries that we support and where we work. And if we identify a region or a community or a fishery that's very, very healthy, that's something we want to get involved with and support. And when we see fisheries that are problematic, where stocks, are declining, and we have alternatives from aquaculture, for example. Those are initiatives that we support. So if a wild fishery is healthy and sustainable and communities benefit, the right people benefit from their own natural resources, and that's really the holy grail.
In the case of the Rio Negro region of Amazonas, there are clear benefits to supporting the aquarium fish industry. After 50 years of capturing fish, there is no evidence that fish stocks have decreased. It's the type of industry which helps to protect the forest and rivers. Industries like soy and palm oil agriculture or cattle ranching and mining destroy the forest and contaminates the rivers. Aquarium fish can also be sold at a higher value than those products. Traditional extractive industries like aquarium fish, fruits, and nuts should be seen as the future for industry in the rainforest because of the economic and environmental benefits they offer.
I believe that the Piaveros and the community of the people that participate in the well-being of the forest need to be respected and supported in their efforts. And I think they play a very important role in protecting and in safekeeping the well-being of the Amazon.
Ela gera recursos com impacto muito pequeno. Qualquer outra atividade que demande a retirada da floresta, seja para agricultura, para corte de árvores, para madeira ou para qualquer outro fim, certamente vai ter um impacto muito maior.
If we don't protect these fisheries, then we lose them. Once we lose them forever. And once you dam up some of these areas and that habitat is lost for these fish, you could be looking at potential extinction, if not just for specific locales of species, in some cases entire species. And we're not just talking about the fish here, we're talking about everything from the most minute bit of algae to invertebrates like snails and insects that live in some really niche ecosystems there that once they're lost, are lost forever.
It's a humble little hobby, having these colorful little fish in your home, but this is something that these home hobbyists can be involved in and help resolve global issues. Poverty alleviation in developing countries, food security for people living in rural areas, protection of areas of biological importance, offset of climate change. This is all because of this little hobby of people having fish in their aquarium at home.
It's such a great hobby. So many kids are looking at screens nowadays, and an aquarium gives them a sense of nature and responsibility, so that they take care of the fish and learn to take care of the environment of our planet also. I think our industry helps with the conservation of the fish in the Amazon region.
The ornamental fish industry is like the other extractive industries in the Amazon. It sustains the local people with the traditional knowledge to know how to use the forest and maintain the forest. We can lose one or two of these industries and it won't change all that much. But the problem is a domino effect. We are losing all of the extractive industries, we are losing the traditional knowledge, and in the end that could mean that we lose the Amazon.
Mas por que não a gente utilizar esse recurso natural que tem em abundância na nossa região? Vamos utilizar no sentido de a gente estar trazendo riqueza para o país, fazendo com que o país seja conhecido pelo ornamental e fazendo com que as populações tradicionais sobrevivam dignamente e protegendo a nossa Amazônia, que vai com certeza influenciar o clima mundial.
There are many sustainable wild-caught fisheries around the world which, because of those fisheries, the habitats surrounding the fisheries have been maintained in a condition that they would not have otherwise.
Well, given we know the fact that this fishery is so environmentally beneficial and so important economically for this region, given the fact that we know the fishery is headed for a severe decline, if not collapse, really just as consumers of tropical fish, people who might be interested in tropical fish aquariums, seek out and buy Rio Negro fish where you can. There's nothing that shows stronger support than actually just buying the product, the end results, and keeping these guys afloat.
Não, isso aí não acaba. Diminui, depois melhora um pouquinho, mas não acaba. Que eu tinha 10 anos de idade quando eu trabalhava com meu pai em Tabatinga, todo mundo falava, vai acabar, vai acabar. E até hoje, já estou com 76 anos e não acabou, né? E estou passando, né, para os meus filhos, né? Eles é que vão continuar.